The evening started with anticipation, as fans packed the audience and millions tuned in for what was expected to be another entertaining episode of Jimmy Kimmel Live. Robert Downey Jr., always a crowd favorite, was the special guest. The mood was light, and the applause thundered as he stepped onto the stage. Wearing his signature flair and charisma, he greeted Jimmy with a handshake and a smile, but something in his eyes hinted at restraint. The crowd expected banter, laughs, and Marvel callbacks, but what they got was an unexpected spark that quickly turned the night from comedy to confrontation. Jimmy began the conversation casually, tossing a few warm-up jokes, but it didn't take long before he brought up Robert's pasta, a topic that's been dissected for years. "It's amazing," Jimmy said, "from mugshots to Iron Man suits." The audience laughed uncertainly. Robert paused. "I've heard that one before," he said with a forced grin. It was the kind of joke that used to roll off his back, but this time, it didn't. Jimmy, sensing the moment was off, tried pivoting, but the damage was done. What was intended as humor came across as cheap, and Robert's patience began to wear thin. Things became more awkward when Jimmy joked about Robert's sobriety. "Still off the sauce, right? Or is Tony Stark sneaking a flask these days?" That did it. Robert's smile disappeared. "You know, Jimmy," he said firmly, "jokes about recovery aren't edgy, they're tired." The audience murmured in discomfort. Jimmy tried laughing it off, claiming it was just late-night fun, but Robert wasn't letting it slide. He leaned in slightly, his tone calm but stern. "There are real people watching who've been through hell. Maybe they deserve more than punchlines." It was clear this wasn't going to be a normal interview. Trying to regain control, Jimmy moved on to lighter topics: Marvel movies, cameos, and fan theories. But the tone didn't recover. "Are you really done being Iron Man?" Jimmy asked. "Or are you just waiting for a bigger paycheck?" The joke landed with a thud. Robert replied dryly, "Maybe I'm done being a joke to talk show hosts." The air was sucked out of the room. A few in the audience chuckled nervously, but most just sat in silence. Jimmy, visibly thrown off, tried to steer the conversation back on course, but Robert had clearly shifted his focus. He was done playing the role. The turning point came when Jimmy tried to lighten things up with a pre-recorded skit showing Robert in mock superhero scenarios. "Let's have a laugh," he said, rolling the footage. But Robert stopped him. "I didn't come here to relive the costume," he said. "I'm here to talk about my real work of producing environmental projects, real impact." The control room hesitated, but paused the video. Robert continued, "I've been an actor, an addict, a punchline, and now I'm just a guy trying to do better. Let's not reduce that to a meme." The audience clapped, unsure if they should or not. Jimmy, now visibly uncomfortable, tried defending his approach. "We just try to keep things lighthearted around here," he said. Robert didn't raise his voice, but his words hit hard. "Lighthearted is fine, Jimmy. Disrespect isn't." There was no shouting, no dramatics, just quiet disappointment from a man who's been through enough. "Every time I sit in a chair like this, I ask myself if it's worth it," Robert added, "because somehow, it always circles back to who I was, never who I am." The studio was silent. Even the band held back from playing during the pause. Jimmy finally asked, "So who are you now, Robert?" He probably meant it sincerely, but the moment had passed. Robert responded, "Someone who values conversations with depth. Someone who doesn't need applause to feel seen." The crowd murmured again, some nodding, some unsure. "I'm not Iron Man anymore. I'm a father, a husband, an activist. I'm not here to be roasted. I'm here because people still think I have something worth listening to beyond the Marvel hype." It was clear Robert wasn't angry, he was just disappointed, and somehow, that felt even heavier in the room. Jimmy, now flustered, asked, "Well, what do you want people to know, then?" And Robert took a deep breath. "That growth is possible, that people can come back from their darkest days and still do something good. But when the world only remembers the mugshot, not the mission, it gets exhausting." The audience applauded, this time genuinely. "I didn't come here to be reminded of who I was," he continued. "I came to show who I've become." If that's not interesting enough for late night, maybe late night needs to grow up too. A powerful statement, met with complete silence from Jimmy. At that point, Robert slowly stood up. "I think I've said what I needed to say," he said. "Thanks for having me." Jimmy looked stunned. "So are you leaving?" he asked. Robert simply nodded, smiled at the audience, and walked off stage with dignity. No shouting, no chaos, just a man choosing not to participate in a conversation that wasn't serving him. The band didn't play. The audience gave hesitant applause. Jimmy turned to the camera, unsure what to say, and eventually muttered, "We'll be right back," before cutting to commercial. The internet exploded almost instantly. Clips of the exchange went viral. Some called Robert a diva, accusing him of overreacting, but the majority saw something different: a public figure drawing a firm boundary. "Downey speaks in respect." Robert trended on X and Instagram. Fans praised him for addressing a long-standing issue: how media often exploits someone's darkest moments for entertainment. Celebrities and activists chimed in, calling the moment a much-needed wake-up call for talk shows and the media in general. The impact was immediate and widespread. In the following days, Robert's team released a short statement. Robert values authentic dialogue. He felt last night's interview didn't reflect that, so he chose to exit respectfully. Jimmy Kimmel, on the next episode, addressed the event in a brief segment, saying, "We might have gone too far. I wish him well." But the apology felt hollow to many viewers. What mattered was what millions saw with their own eyes: a man who could have stayed quiet or played along, but chose instead to walk away from a situation that didn't serve truth or dignity. Industry insiders reported that Robert's appearance was contingent on focusing on his current projects as something producers had agreed to. When the show turned toward mockery and past trauma, it broke that agreement. Many viewers said the moment highlighted the need for hosts to evolve, just as their guests do. Entertainment doesn't have to come at the cost of empathy. In fact, when the audience sees authenticity, it creates a deeper connection. Downey Jr.'s choice resonated not because he was angry but because he was honest, and honesty is rare in places built for performance. Robert Downey Jr. may have walked off a stage that night, but he walked into something bigger: a renewed respect from fans who saw more than just a star. They saw a man choosing himself. That moment wasn't about ego or scandal, it was about boundaries, maturity, and growth. And in an industry that thrives on spectacle, his quiet exit made more noise than any viral stunt could. Whether he ever returns to late night is uncertain, but one thing is clear: when Robert speaks, the world listens. And this time, he spoke without needing a script, a suit, or applause.